It is with enormous respect and honor that I have been asked to introduce this year's recipient of the Truman Reagan Medal of Freedom. Now, this medal is given by the Victims of Communism Foundation to individuals who not only demonstrated a lifelong opposition to communism, but also to people who have had tireless advocates for freedom and democracy. This year's recipient, Madam President, she represents these very values. She has shown a lifelong commitment not only to her native country of Latvia, but also to the democratic stability of all of Europe. As most of you know, she was born in beautiful Riga, just around the time of World War II. As war took hold of Europe and millions of people lost their lives and their freedom, her native country, Latvia, was occupied and reoccupied by two enemies, let us never forget, by both Germany and the Soviet Union. Now, she spent her childhood in Germany, but in Germany in refugee camps. And in an early age, she experienced the horrors of war, the horrors of death, hunger, humiliation, and subsequently of exile. She moved to Morocco with her family, and by the age of 16 to Canada. She was a distinguished author with a very rich career in psychology and specializing in the relationship of thought and language. And I'm convinced, Madam President, that's why you were able to succeed in politics. She graduated from the University of Toronto with a bachelor's degree in arts and a master's degree in arts, and subsequently earning her PhD from McGraw-Hill University in Montreal in experimental psychology. Now, during this part of her professional life, she held numerous prominent positions in national and international scientific and scholarly organizations. In 1998, she was invited by the Prime Minister to head the new Latvian Institute and return to Latvia. In less than a year, she was recruited and elected to be the first female president and the 6th president of Latvia. She was subsequently re-elected in 2003. Under her successful presidency, Latvia became a member of NATO and of the EU. She was named the Special Envoy for the Secretary General of the United Nations, and in 2006 was an official candidate to that very position. President Vika Freiberga is honored to have 16 honorary doctorate degrees and 37 orders of merit. Congratulations. So at this point, please welcome Madam President Vika Freiberga to accept her Medal of Freedom.
Dear Aldona, thank you for those kind words. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it's with deep gratitude and humility that I accept this honor, with a full understanding that the true honoree tonight is this foundation that has taken on the daunting task of reminding the world at large that of the past century and the sufferings that it has brought upon humanity. We have been remiss in condemning part of the crimes then committed, in commemorating some of the victims who had suffered grievously at its hands, but that we have been, I think, grossly remiss in remembering the tens and even hundreds of millions who suffered under communism. And the second part of this foundation, I think, that is so truly fundamentally important, is to remind us all, and especially those living here in America, under the most wonderful, long-lasting system of democracy and freedom anywhere in the world, that you are truly privileged in enjoying what fate has bestowed on you, and that it, in a way, puts a responsibility on your shoulders to, while you're enjoying the benefits and the blessings that's been bestowed on you, to remember what others have suffered and what others need in terms of help. I think America has been exemplary in that regard in many ways, and I think that the foundation for the commemoration of the victims of communism is fulfilling a task that truly is very, very needed and very necessary. If I may just illustrate how actual the situation is, not just here in the States, but also in Europe, about an uneven and distorted view of the past century and its accomplishments, but especially its evils. Just this spring, I was invited to the city of Dresden, the one, by the way, that suffered such grievous harm during the firebombing of that city, where 250,000 civilians, innocent civilians, perished. And a city that was for many years part of the DDR, Eastern Germany, behind the Iron Curtain. And I was asked to make a presentation before a large audience in the largest cathedral of the town, the Kirchentag, that the Lutheran churches come together, and there's about 150,000 people in Dresden at the time, not all of them fitting into the cathedral at the time. I tried to tell them about the history of my country and the future of Europe as I saw it. And at the end we had questions. And one lady stood up and said, I was struck by the fact that in your presentation you said something to the effect that the past century suffered two equal evils, Nazism and communism. How could you possibly equate the two? And to a stunning silence in the cathedral, I answered very simply, because both of them have in common a total disregard for human life and for human dignity. I think this is what many parts of Europe still have not understood, that totalitarianism, under whatever name, is equally evil, that liberty, under whatever form, is something to be cherished, to be treasured, to be nurtured, and something that we have to foster in those parts of the world where it has not yet been achieved. I spent my whole life thinking about the freedom of my country, sympathizing with my compatriots back in my native land, understanding the sufferings of the generation of my parents and my grandparents. And it was a miracle, truly, when we did recover our freedom, our independence, and for those who wish to do so, repatriate to our native land. But there are parts of the world still who neither understand the harm that was done before, nor are they fully aware of the fragility of democracy and of liberty. We are nearing a sad anniversary for the United States. the terrorist attacks that this country suffered. And they are a testimony to the fact that prejudice, blind self-centeredness, hatred are still alive. The years go by, the ideologies take different forms, but prejudice and hatred is always ready to rear its ugly head. It helps to remember what forms it took in the past and to understand why and how it did so. I hope that this very important work that you do will also be of help for us to understand the challenges of today. What is the hatred that moves the terrorists and the extremists of the world today, and to help along those nations that have understood that even if they have national independence, if they are ruled by tyrants, they are not truly free. I think we all have to continue working for democracy and freedom in the broadest possible sense of that term. To you all who are here today, to all those who labor in that regard, I offer my respects and my good wishes. There's a great deal to be done in the world to continue to protect these values we hold dear, which are freedom and liberty and respect for the life and dignity of man. Thank you.